Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to our teleuth Biohack Friday webinar. And today we're going to talk about a topic that gets a lot of confusion around it. It has, but it's something that's so incredibly important. And we're going to talk about fats. And we're going to talk about what kind of fats there are. What do you need to avoid? What's happened in our culture? And what can you do about it? As you're looking at going out to restaurants and all of those kinds of things. Dr. Chris, welcome. You're really good at this topic. You like these good fats.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Tina, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, this is a great topic to really educate yourself on because it determines so much of your health. I mean, it's so important, not just for the physical development of the body. We talk about the membranes of the body all require the good fats, the phospholipid layers, but also it's the good fats, especially the omega-3s, they're called the essential fatty acids, and they're essential because we have to provide them. Our body can't make them. So you have to put them in, take them into the system through a supplement or through your foods. And our standard diets just really don't have adequate amounts of these essential fats. So, Dr. Tina, where do you want to begin here?
Well, let's just start with a bit of a description here. And first of all, fats, they're water insoluble. And they're biological molecules. They're also called lipids. So you'll hear us say lipids or fats interchangeably, and they are the primary building block of all of our cell membranes. This is one of the reasons why it's so important to eat the right type of fat, because it's going to help us with our health and our longevity. The more you eat bad fats, the more accelerated aging you are going to have. So, what distinguishes one fat from another? Well, it's the combination of what these fatty acids are composed of. All right. And it depends on their hydrogen saturation, the length of their molecules, or their chain length. So let's get into some of the basics. You're going to hear these words and you'll know you've all heard these before. So we're going to talk about the four, number one, saturated fats. Now, these are fully loaded with hydrogen atoms and they form straight chains. They're typically solid at room temperature. So this is going to be like your butter, your coconut oil. Then we have our unsaturated fats, and they've lost at least one of the pair of the hydrogen atoms. And those come in two forms: the monosaturated fats, which is missing one pair of the hydrogen atoms, and then this one, which is something we need to talk about a lot today, the polyunsaturated fats, also known as PUFAs, P-U-F-As. And they're missing more than one pair of the hydrogen atoms, and that's why they call it poly. Okay, so this fat, by the way, these polyunsaturated fats, they're a liquid at room temperature. Okay, Dr. Chris, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, no, I was going to say that's what defines them. Saturated is solid at room temperature, and unsaturated is liquid. So that's good. The unfortunate thing is that our diet we consume more of the, let's say, unnecessary fats versus the essential fats. It should be a good 4-to-1 ratio. And our American standard diet is like a 16-to-1 ratio, meaning the omega-6s to the omega-3s. So this is why we really endorse our Telo Omega, because it is a very, very powerful, supplement for supplementing your omega-3s and getting that balance back. And the reason it makes such a difference is the omega-6s cause inflammation, and the omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. So, if you've got any type of itis, we were talking about Donna's poor little puppy has pancreatitis, and that's a very inflammatory condition, right, for the pancreas. And so the omega-3s would be very, very beneficial to help bring down that fire, bring down that inflammation. And so, Dr. Tina, let's talk a little bit more about the sources of these different fats, so that we can understand which ones we're consuming too much of and which ones we need more of, because that's
Sure.
really where the problem is.
Sure, I'd like to talk a little bit about what's happened in you mentioned our culture here in the United States. And it's interesting. People think that, our diseases have really gone up and stayed high because of sugar. So let me give you some numbers here. In 1822, our annual sugar consumption was about 6 pounds. All right. In 1999, they measured it at 108 pounds a year of our sugar consumption. So there was a 17-fold increase. I can only imagine what it is now, 24 years now later. However, during that time, it's very interesting to note seed oils, the polyunsaturated fats, went up 25-fold during that time. When we look at processed foods, they contain about 21% sugar. However, up to 50% or more of the overall calories contained in most processed foods comes from seed oils. Now, it's interesting, in the United States, our carb consumption started to drop, sugar consumption, in the year of 2000. And this is because, the keto diet came out and all these other things were happening. But interestingly enough, obesity and type 2 diabetes continued to increase. And this is because of the surge of seed oil consumption. And one of the problems with these seed oils, or these polyunsaturated fats, is that they last longer in your body. It takes about 6 years to replace all of the bad fats with healthy fats in your body. So when you grab that processed food, that bag of chips or that popcorn or those crackers or whatever it is, just know those bad fats will hang out in all of the membranes. And this is very critical because it interferes with so many healthy processes in the body, especially the mitochondria, our energy production. But it takes up to 6 years to get that out of your body, those bad fats. Whereas, by the way, sugar and glycogen stores, you can exhaust those out of your body within 1 to 2 days. Okay. Do you have anything you'd like to comment on there, Dr. Chris?
I do. I think, you always hear us comment, Dr. Tina will say, stay away from the processed foods. And the big reason is just what Dr. Tina explained. The processed foods have these these bad fats. And here's the thing to know is that the seed oils provide a good fat, but when they're processed, they become very, very toxic. They become hydrogenated, and that's one of the ways they're processed. And the reason for the processing is because fats, when they're exposed to oxygen, or when they're removed from their source, from the seed or from the corn or from the peanut, they go rancid, they oxidize. So this is why they're hydrogenated, because if you were to taste a rancid fat, it wouldn't taste good. And so therefore, for the flavoring of the processed foods, they hydrogenate them. This is what we mean by these fats being processed. So they're disguised so that we don't get the bad taste. And processed foods are so toxic from the standpoint of the high carbohydrate concentration. But now we want you to understand from the processed oils, from the bad fats that just are so detrimental. And Dr. Tina, you have a list of them here. You want to get into that?
Right, exactly. Here, and it's so interesting because in 1866, Procter and Gamble came along and they started that hydrogenated process you're talking about, where they converted this excess unusable cottonseed into a synthetic seed oil. And guess what it's sold to this day as? Do you have any idea what it is, Dr. Chris?
No.
Crisco. Okay,
Oh
then
my
after
goodness.
that, Crisco, lard, right? Shortly after that, margarine came right along in its tracks, and that's also made from seed oils. So this is how this was all kind of introduced. But the biggest challenge that we have is when we go out to eat at restaurants, or you go to the deli and you buy foods that are already prepared, even at our local co-op, there's canola oil there. And you've got to be careful because all of those are going to be the polyunsaturated or the hydrogenated oils, right? That hang out in our bodies. So anytime you go to a restaurant, anytime you go get food somewhere and you're not preparing it, more than likely, because it's a very inexpensive oil, that's what they're using to prepare your food. Okay.
So here's the two big points that we're trying to make here is that there's the factor that number one, the ratio, meaning that the omega-6s, which are listed here on the right-hand side, even though omega-6 isn't a bad fat, but when it's processed, it is. So the ratio is too high compared to the essential omega-3s. So we're over consuming the omega-6s. And the other downside, which is again because of the foods of commerce, is the omega-6s are processed, and when they're processed, they become toxic. That's when they're these hydrogenated oils that we're talking to you about. So not only we are over consuming hydrogenated processed omega-6s, we have the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 way out of balance. And so when Dr. Tina tells you that when you start out with your telo-omega to take as many as 8 capsules, that's what you need just to bring back the proper ratio for your body, but also to help balance, hopefully, your improvement of your diet. You start removing all those processed fats and those processed foods that contain those bad fats. So it's a double whammy that we're dealing with. We're dealing with the food of commerce that comes after us with these overconsumption of omega-6s and the fact that these omega-6s are toxic. They're rancid. They're very harmful for the body, so the body can't use them. And so therefore, we really got to put in the good fats in a larger amount. So shall we switch over to the good fats here and just talk about how we get those in our system?
Absolutely. And you see, back in the 1800s, early 1900s, people were getting a lot of their good fats from grass-fed butter, tallow, ghee, all of these things were, free-range eggs, also from, good grass-fed beef. You're going to get good fats from grass-fed beef. But you see this list here on the left-hand side. The two areas that I really want to bring up are the two oils on the left, to be aware of a little bit now because of the commercialization of them is avocado oil and olive oil. You need to make sure that you are getting a good, pure, clean olive oil and avocado oil, because of the press, and all of the good information that we now know about avocados and olives, and putting them into oils, and they make us so healthy that, corporate America has grabbed onto that and has started to process those oils. So make sure when you buy those, you're getting the right ones. But look at
That's
all
such
those
an
fats.
important point, Dr. Tina, because you see coconut oil, avocado oil, and olive oil, they don't fit the omega-3 essential fatty acid profile because the avocado and olive are omega-9s primarily. But the fact that they're very, very nutritionally dense and very helpful for the body. So they're good fats to burn for energy and to consume in our diets to replace the overconsumption of the omega-6s. So get rid of many of the, the safflower, the corn, the canola oil, and replace it with the olive and avocado. But then we've got to get that ratio of the omega-3s in there. So it's really important that where you're going to get your omega-3s, and that's primarily from the seafoods. There's some vegetable sources, but most of them come from the fish sources, and the best ocean sources are from the lower chain crustacean, meaning the krill, the algae that have the good fats. These are what the fish will eat, but as you get the oil from the larger fish, they have an accumulation of the mercury that they absorb from the fish that they eat. So when you see your fish oil comes from, the tuna or the salmon, or, they're a good essential fatty acid, but unfortunately, they're high in the heavy metals and especially the mercury. So now again, we're dealing with the toxicity of our environment. These are the things that we just really aren't conscious of, and we think that we're being protected by the the industry, the food industry, but really it's about the bottom line, and they're finding ways to just get us things that are least expensive to the manufacturing and the food industry versus what's essential and natural that the body's looking for. Dr. Tina.
Exactly. And let's talk about these bad fats. I mean, they're everywhere, they're prevalent. We need to avoid them. And why do we need to avoid them? The damage is just unbelievable. So it not only hurts our mitochondrial production, that is our energy, and so much more. Our mitochondria does so much more than that, but most of us know that is producing energy. But it also, these bad fats, they damage the cell lining in our blood vessels. It's also showing that there is a memory impairment and now an increase in your risk of Alzheimer's, especially canola oil. They've seen a link to Alzheimer's there. It strips our liver of the glutathione. So our own antioxidant defense drops. There's an enzyme that converts short-chain omega-3s to longer-chain omega-3s that keep us very healthy, and it inhibits that process. It impairs our immune function, increases our mortality rates. It makes our fat cells more insulin sensitive, thereby causing insulin resistance. You've got that fat around your belly, you have insulin resistance. Okay, so you need to really look at your processed foods intake. And the other area again is the fat on the inner membrane of our mitochondria. All of our membranes really need the good fats. So when we're consuming these bad fats here on the right-hand side, just remember, it can take up to 6 or 7 years to get that out of your body, and it wreaks havoc. It drives disease rates up more than sugar. Okay, so keep that in mind. And ways to clean it out are change over your fats right away and take your telomega, because it's a saponifier. In other words, it helps to break down the bad fats that we've accumulated in our system. Okay, so it'll help accelerate moving those bad fats out, and it will protect our body as it's moving those bad fats out as well. So Dr. Chris, so shall we go back to, do you want to show our krill
Yeah,
oil?
we can show the video, but what I'd like to do is first help everyone understand how much omega-3s do you need. So as a young child, from let's say the first 7 years of your life, you might need 500 milligrams versus 1,000 milligrams, so a half to 1 gram. But as you get older, from age 8 on, you need 1 gram to 1.5 grams. So that's 1,500 milligrams. And when you're taking your Telo Omega, you get about 760 milligrams of the good fats with 4 capsules. So again, Dr. Tina, I just love how you emphasize, 6 to 8 caps. 8 capsules would give you that 1,500 milligrams. If you're over 50 years old, 55 years old, you need that 1,500 milligram amount. And just so you know, 3,000 milligrams is safe. So double that amount is a safe quantity. So if you're not getting at least those 8 capsules, if you're an older individual, you're really deficient in the amount of essential fatty acids that you need. And also, you've got to look at that ratio. You might even need more if you're taking too many of the omega-6s, the processed ones that we're talking to you about. We're getting it from, even though it might not be processed, you're buying it from the health food store, and it's a good omega-6. It still has to be in the right proportion, 1 to 4 to the omega-3s, not 1 to 16, which is the standard consumption rate now. So let's show some of the magic of Telo-Omega, what it does and why it just does so many things in the body.
텔로유스 크릴 오일은 오메가3, 콜린 및 강력한 인지질을 함유해 그 효능은 전신 건강으로 나타납니다. 사람의 몸은 수조 개의 세포로 구성되어 있으며 인지질 이중층이라 불리는 막이 각 세포를 보호해 조직이 형성되고 영양소 흡수율을 높이며 에너지 생산 및 무수한 생체 기능이 가능합니다. 생명의 기초가 형성되는 것이죠. 크릴 오일이 주목을 받는 것은 풍부한 자연산 인지질을 함유해서입니다. 텔로유스 크릴 오일 인지질은 세포의 이중층에 오메가3와 콜린을 직접 공급, 전달 및 통합합니다. 이것이 크릴 오일 인지질의 효능입니다. 심장, 간, 근육, 심지어 피부를 포함하여 신체의 모든 세포와 장기에 유익합니다. 텔로유스 크릴 오일로 얻는 건강한 세포, 건강한 몸.
That's so powerful. The krill is, again, it's low on the food chain within the oceans, and also its bioavailability. And so when we show you all the different areas that are improved or necessary for having the good fats, you can see why it's the illnesses like cardiovascular disease is rampant in our culture, because again, it's not just the sugar, it's the fats. Inflammatory conditions, that we feel in our joints first, but it could be throughout our bodies. Our muscles wake up stiff and sore. It's that inflammation that has built up in the body. Our cognitive skills, our, central nervous system, our brain and nervous system that is so vital and critical to the signaling and communication throughout the body requires these good fats. The primary substance, the integrity of the brain is fat. And so it has to be made from the good fats. And, vision, so many individuals have reported how their vision improves with taking the Telo-Omega. So these are really key points to understand, Dr. Tina.
They sure are. One of the things I also have learned about recently is that when you're working on getting these bad fats out of your body, and you're changing over into the good fats, and your Telo-Youth is going to be amazing for helping to move that out in a healthy way, but also because of the amino acids. So carnosine is a fantastic amino acid that reduces the oxidative damage. And this is while it's cleaning out those bad fats. So that's another way to help support yourself as you're, working on cleaning up the body. Take your extra Telo-Youth, take your extra Telo-Omega, right? Because that's a saponifier. So the Telo-Youth, the Telo-Omega helps to clean out the body, and then start taking all of the other good fats, or eating all of the other good fats in your diet. And you'll see there'll be a big shift and change. Okay.
And isn't it fascinating how the krill is, full of the astaxanthin, which is a natural antioxidant that protects the integrity of the krill oil, but also as we consume it, it protects the integrity of the fats in our own body, the ones that we're consuming and from other sources. And so as you start getting rid of the bad fats and you're taking in the good fats, you have this good free radical scavenger antioxidant, the astaxanthin, that's naturally occurring in the telo-omega. So you've got a nice 1-2 punch. You've got the supplementation along with the protection. And then, of course, the choline. The choline helps you to remove the bad fats. Because why? The choline supports the liver, and one of the primary functions of the many functions of the liver is to regulate the fats in the body, to clean out the bad fats and dump them into the gallbladder, and where they're eliminated through the intestines. So here you see this dynamic of all the systems being coordinated and facilitated with the telo-youth and the telo-omega. They just play such a key role in establishing the signaling, establishing the cell membranes, establishing the good fats to make those membranes, and also the nutrient density of the amino acids and the fats that are in those two formulas.